Welcome to the Awesemo Early Bird Podcast. It's your old pal Emac coming to you with one Adam Ship, my money share, as we get ready for a Thursday split slate. So happy it's Thursday. That means we are one day closer to the weekend where we have some excellent baseball going on. We have an odd Saturday slate. I think it's a 3 o'clock, 4 o'clocks, and there might be a 6 o'clock sneaking in there, but then it's a healthy main slate. So that will be a fun one. And then Sunday, looking pretty robust as well. Adam, talk to me, my man. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. Came close on the early slate yesterday, so I'm feeling pretty good about another 6-gamer tonight.
All right. We've got, of course, our recording this the night before. This is Wednesday night. Happy hump day to everybody. We've got a little bit of weather there going on in the Washington Nationals game. We will see what happens if they are going to start that one or not. I'm about 30 miles east of the stadium. It is bone dry here, but I can see that there was a weather cell there, so we shall see. We shall see. Anyway, we got a 2-game early slate on DraftKings. Not everybody's posted their stuff yet. FanDuel's got it as well. Let's cover this for you real easily. Everybody, and by everybody I mean literally everybody, is going to want to play Jacob deGrom. Their sneaky, which really is not going to be so sneaky a pivot, is probably going to be either Miles Mikolas. I did it for you, Adam. Mikolas. Or Joe Musgrove on DK, both underpriced. But you got to pick 2 of the 4. You got to take some hitters against them. So people are going to decide they're going to take lefties like Josh Bell, Colin Moran, and Corey Dickerson against Mikolas. And then you've got the same team as everybody. And then, you know what? Let's take Wilson Ramos, Pete Alonso, and, pick another Mets lefty against Eric Lauer. And there is your chalk for you. So if you're not going to do different than that, don't play because you're not going to win. Is that a simple assessment, Adam?
Yeah, pretty much. It's a 2-game slate, so you should be going off the board if you're going to play. Everyone can figure out that they want to take lefties against Mikolas and their roster Jacob deGrom, and they want to take Pete Alonso and JD Davis and Ramos against Lauer.
So there we are. Now, that's not being flippant. It's just saying, unless you're willing to wave goodbye to your money, and if you play that stack, you probably, or what we just described, you probably will try something a little different. Put in a couple bucks. Go against it. Doesn't mean you have to make horrible, silly, crazy picks, but it means don't pick most of those. Pick half of the ones we just mentioned, and you'll probably be somewhat different and can maybe luck box your way into a couple home runs or something that other people do not have. But in any event, we have a very full and intriguing evening slate. So let's focus on that one. We have, 6 games, but they are an intriguing 6 games, Adam. We've got a little bit... Am I on the right day? Yeah, Lucas... Who's pitch? Oh, it's Ronaldo. Never mind. So Lucas Giolito pitching tonight. Sorry, I lost track of days there. It's been a long week. But we've got the Mets and the Yankees and Boston starting up their series. That'll be a fun one, as it always is. We have the Twins and White Sox in Chicago. We have Cleveland and Kansas City, and these teams feel like they've played each other 25 times already. Ditto for Texas at Oakland, but Ariel Jurado's on the mound. Mike Montgomery's on the mound. Tom Eshelman's on the mound as the Baltimore Orioles are in there going against Los Angeles, who may or may not be putting a closer in front of whomever they are designated as their pitcher. Today, I think Dylan Peters is coming close to coming back into the rotation, or it's going to be his turn. And then we don't know what the Mariners are going to do, but looks like Drew Verhagen might be getting a start here for Detroit. Adam, we got all sorts of opportunities here to go for some hitters. Now, there are 3 standout pitchers here, and we're going to cover them in the first 2 games, but this gives you more differentiation. So even if you're on those pitchers, there are plenty of other ways to be different. Adam, let's start off with the Yankees and Boston. What do you like from this game, Tanaka and Porcello?
Yeah, so I think it's a tough spot for Tanaka going against the Red Sox. Obviously Tanaka has some strikeout upside. He's been really hit or miss this year, really struggled to start the season. His peripherals, his plate discipline numbers have been better over his last, 5 to 10 starts. Swinging strike percentage has really gone up. Chase percentage has gone back to the elite levels that we expect from him. But it's still a really tough matchup. Boston doesn't strike out a lot. They have a 5.3 implied run total, and you're not really getting a discount on Tanaka. So not overly interested in him. And then on the other side, Rick Porcello is affordable, but he's never been a great major league pitcher, and he's really, really struggled this year. He's facing a Yankees lineup that has tons of power from both sides of the plate. So I'm not really looking at pitching in this one.
You know what's sad? Max Scherzer is looking to go at that 4:00 game for the Nationals. It's really not on any slate because only Yahoo will have an all-day slate, but their price pools will be small, and FanDuel will. Damn, we're gonna miss out on that one. But in any event, on to hitters here, Adam. Since we've only got 6 to talk about, I am assuming it's going to be pretty much anybody in the top 6 or 7 here for the projected lineup for the Yankees. So LeMahieu, Hicks, Encarnacion, Judge, Voit, assuming he's healthy enough to be in the lineup, Didi, Torres, etc. Anyone stand out amongst those guys going against Porcello?
Yeah, I think that pretty much everyone on the Yankees is a pretty strong play against Porcello. In this park in Fenway, you give priority to the right-handed power, which the Yankees obviously have tons of it. From the other side, not as appealing a full stack but he has always had issues with home runs, so I think grabbing a one-off makes sense. And don't forget that Rafael Devers has just been one of the best hitters in baseball after a slow start to the season.
Yeah, he's catching up rather quickly here. Moving along, our next game here is in Minnesota, and it's going to be pleasant in most of these places. It's going to be in the upper 70s, low 80s. We'll call out a couple spots that might be a little cooler than that. No real precipitation issues, but hey, I thought the same thing today about the Washington Nationals. So one never knows. Check that out closer to lock. Of course, you can follow along with the live before lock. That is always intriguing. That will be on at 1 hour before first pitch. And then we've got the Osmo Weather Twitter account. You can always check that out and get Alex's thoughts. Or if you're a premium subscriber, you can get his postpone percentages in the projections. They just come right out when you download the projections. Very helpful. All right, Adam, Minnesota at Chicago. Will the White Sox be ready to face a team that's going to be tougher than the Miami Marlins? We shall see. But we have Jose Berrios getting that nice righty-heavy matchup here for the White Sox, or relatively righty-heavy, because frankly their lefties don't scare me, I think is a better way of saying it, with John Jay, Ryan Goins, even Lurie Garcia, etc. So kind of a mishmash of who's righties, who's lefties, but without Eloy Jimenez, they're not quite as formidable of a lineup. And then Lucas Giolito has a tougher matchup going against the Twins, but at least he has upside here, along with some strikeout upside. Talk to me about the hurlers in this game.
Yeah, really tough spot for Giolito. It's unfortunate that he missed that Miami series because that would have been pretty fun for him. But now he gets a Minnesota team that doesn't strike out a lot, has a lot of power. Just a really difficult spot. And while he is a really good pitcher, he's not quite as good as he showed earlier in the season. So it's really tough to pay an elevated price tag for him. On the other side, you have Berrios, who hasn't been a great strikeout pitcher this season. His walk percentage has come down from previous years, but so has his strikeout percentage, down to about 23% overall. But he does have a really good matchup against a White Sox team that is one of the most favorable strikeout matchups for right-handed pitchers. They don't walk a lot. Just a really appealing spot.
All right. Interesting. So let's talk just real quick percentages on these guys. Yes, it's very, very early and we don't know where we're going to go. But assuming on the 2 pitcher sites, we know that bats generally carry the day, while the first 3 of our most talented pitchers are in these first 2 games. As we've pointed out, they're not necessarily in the best of matchups, any of the 3 of them. Would this be somewhere where you would consider, and I don't want to say, I don't like using the word fade, but would you suspect you would get sub 20% of this quartet of pitchers in your 150 portfolio?
Like aggregate?
A piece. Would any of these 4 crest over 20%?
I think that Berrios probably would, because of the matchup. You know, if with there only being 6 games right now, we don't have confirmed starters for 3 teams. Right. 1 starter is Drew Verhagen, 1 is Tom Eshelman, 1 is Ariel Jurado, 1 is Adam Plutko, 1 is Mike Montgomery. You really run out of options on the slate. So, I think I'd be over 20% on at least one of these guys.
All right. And this is just kind of for perspective, because a lot of guys like to have and gals, anybody that's playing, likes to have just sort of a little baseline in their mind of if they start mucking around with lineups and they're like, oh, this feels like a lot or not that many. So just kind of just trying to read the tea leaves early just to see where we're at. This is what makes it kind of challenging and interesting, because with some of these many of these gas cans we're going to talk about, we'll kind of focus on their weaknesses so we know how to exploit them. But this is where maybe taking a chance on a few of them. Sadly, most of them aren't as discounted as they were last year on DraftKings, where you could get a lot of these openers, especially the guys that were only going to go one inning, maybe two, in that $4,000 to $5,000 range. We're seeing a bunch of these guys in the $7,000 range, which just makes them almost unusable, unless there's a field littered with mines like there is tonight for Thursday. So I'm just curious how the build ends up happening on this one. But let's move on to our next game here. We're in the 8 o'clock hour with the second game. It's the Cleveland Indians going against the Kansas City Royals. Adam Plutko against Mike Montgomery. Feels like Mike Montgomery has pitched for about 2 decades for Kansas City in various iterations. I have no idea why. Clearly there must have been somebody else that I'm thinking of, Adam, that has pitched for them before. But with Plutko going against a somewhat watered down lineup, not a lot of power in the Royals lineup. I mean, obviously Luke's due to a lost season for him, he probably won't be there. Mondesi is on the disabled list. If that's the vouching for Adam Plutko, I think we want to consider him. Let's throw out some other names: Humberto Ortega, Nicky Lopez, Bubba Starling, Cam Gallagher. Those guys are on DraftKings. They have FanDuel prices at $2,000, $2,800, $3,300, and $2,700. This feels like we're going to see a little of your namesake in some of our lineups on Thursday.
Yeah, I think a lot here will also depend on what pitchers are announced for the Angels, the Mariners, and the Athletics, because all three teams have favorable matchups facing the Tigers, Orioles, and Rangers. So depending who you get pitching those games, it'll affect Plutko. But with the information that we have right now, it is a watered down Kansas City lineup. You know, they get their designated hitter back after being in the National League, but that's not really a big deal with this lineup. And no Adalberto Mondesi really weakens the lineup. So Plutko is a pitcher who isn't particularly good, gives up a lot of power. But once you get past, Merrifield, Gordon, Dozier, and Soler, there's not a lot of power in this lineup. So if we get just like dumpster fire pitchers going for Oakland, Seattle, and the Angels, then Plutko becomes pretty appealing. But at the same time, I think you can look to those 4 power bats for Kansas City against Plutko.
There we go. Jeff Montgomery pitched for Kansas City. Adam.
Yeah, when I was a kid, he was their closer.
There we go. Yeah, that's who I was clearly thinking of. Damn it. I've been around way too long here. Okay. All right. Now that I've solved that little conundrum, we'll go back to the game here. Good points on that. And the problem is it's hard to even guess who's going to be starting in some of these games, because these teams haven't necessarily needed fifth starters until kind of right around now, coming out of the All-Star break. So even if you're trying to map their rotation, we've seen random, I don't want to say random, but different teams have had off days. We had a couple rainouts, etc. So it's mucked up the rotations, and they move around these bulk relievers, shall we say. The Mariners have done it a couple times. Anaheim has as well. And then we saw Texas bring up somebody from the minors yesterday. So it's hard to speculate and guess because so much can change. So we're not trying to avoid it. We wish they were here because it would make this a lot easier to talk about. But that's kind of the hand we have been dealt thus far. Speaking of Texas, we're looking at I'm assuming, I'm sorry, I was so busy looking up Jeff Montgomery. Mike Montgomery, did you mention anything about him, the former Mariner and Chicago Cub?
No, I don't. I mean, he's just not a high strikeout guy. He's got a really low strikeout matchup against Cleveland. Cleveland has one of the highest implied run totals on the slate, so not looking there.
All right, so let's go to Ariel Hirado, because, that's always a fun one. Somehow he's managed to not yet go against Oakland. He had some moments, Adam. He was horrible. And then towards the end of May, beginning of June, he had about 6 starts that were decent. He sort of changed his pitch mix. And then he literally has been ass since then. Basically, for the last month, he has gone into double-digit fantasy points twice. He's gone negative twice, and his single digits have been 4 and 3 and 7. That's on DraftKings. There's not a lot of upside here, but we got to start two pitchers. Any redeeming qualities that he has going into Oakland Alameda County Stadium. It's no longer O.co, so I'm trying to call it by its real name.
No. He's particularly struggled with right-handed power this year. He does have a 19.3% strikeout percentage against righties compared to 13.6 against lefties, but he's allowed a 370 WOBA and a 222 ISO to righties, still not getting a ton of swings and misses. And now he's facing an Oakland team that has one of the highest ISOs against right-handed pitching this year, a bottom third strikeout percentage, just, a pretty dangerous offense. The only thing that makes this not the worst spot for Urado is that it is in Oakland instead of in Texas.
Adam, they have a sponsor now. It's the Ring Central Coliseum.
Interesting.
I have no idea what Ring Central is.
Why would anyone sponsor that dumpster fire stadium?
Let's find out what Ring Central is before we cast aspersions, because that feels like a spam calling site.
Isn't that one of the Zoom type companies?
Why, yes, it is. Adam, it looks like it's an enterprise cloud communications solution that small businesses can utilize to connect with their virtual employees as well as customers. And they use the same kind of color coding and font as Zoom. So there you go. Perhaps.
I don't know why I knew that, but I feel like at some point, I don't know if it was here or at a previous company, we used Ring.
Interesting. All right. Well, there you go. Well, hey, we've got a new stadium with the same old metrics, but there we are. Wow. It looks like they've had the sponsorship for just a couple of weeks here. But anyway, back to this one. If you're going with Texas, we don't know who it's going to be, but let's talk Hunter Pence for just a second. What has gotten into him that has just made this resurgence possible? I mean, getting out of San Francisco helps. Being healthy helps, but he's still doing way better than I would have imagined. I thought at first, okay, hot streak, change of scenery being he's in a better hitting environment, etc. But this continues to go well. I'm not afraid to get him on my rosters anymore, and I was not saying that for the first 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah, I still don't really get him because he's priced up now, but he clearly has been, a rejuvenated hitter this year.
Yeah, very, very surprising. All right, maneuvering along here. A couple more games to go. Tom Eshelman taking on the Angels. We get Shohei Ohtani back because they have the designated hitter. Reminder, they said at the beginning of the season, he is not going to play the field. They do not want him to throw the ball after the Tommy John surgery. So he will be getting pinch hits if there are any more National League games that he is in. But just know that he's stuck playing the DH this season. But the Angels, Tom Eshelman, he's in our lives yet again, Adam. Feels like pretty much everybody is in play, and that's not being facetious.
No, not at all. Eshelman's just he had okay numbers in terms of run prevention at AAA, but not a high strikeout guy. And now he's facing a well above average Angels offense that doesn't strike out a lot. So I really am not interested in Eshelman, and I'm very interested in whatever Angels bats are in the lineup. Shohei Ohtani should be back in the lineup and well rested after they played in the National League. So he got a bunch of days off outside of pinch hit appearances, but he should be back in there DHing, which makes their lineup much more formidable.
All right. On the other side, you've got Boston against question mark. If you were ranking Baltimore. If you were ranking the Baltimore hitters here, let's assume it's a righty. I think Mancini 1, Cisco 2, Smith 3, Nunez 4. Is that where you're going?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
All right. Any Santander?
Santander has been great.
Santander. There we go. I picked him up in all of my season-long leagues today. He was just sitting on the wire, so I said, why not?
Yeah, he's been hitting really, really well lately. The Orioles are quietly a team that they're bad. Don't get me wrong, offensively, but we've seen them kind of go in stretches this year. I remember after the first month or so of the season, some people asking me if we had to consider them like an average or above average offense because of how well they'd been hitting. And I said no. And then they went through this stretch where they were just, god awful. And they're not that bad. They're a below average offense, but they do have some power here. Nunez, 20 plus home runs. Smith has some power. Santander is starting to figure it out at the plate. He's a young guy, so him improving isn't the craziest thing. We know Mancini's good. VR's decent. Depending on who's pitching for the Angels, I think the Orioles could end up being a sneaky spot in tournaments.
Whatever happened to? Didn't they have a guy last year up at the end of the season, Mullen or something like that?
Cedric Mullins. He started there this year and then got demoted.
Okay, so fair point. So looking at this lineup, I see more I like in the Baltimore lineup than I do in the Kansas City lineup.
Yeah, I agree.
And granted,
I kind of agree.
Top four, it's all concentrated in the top four for Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, it's just tough without knowing who's pitching for the Angels. Like, we know who's pitching for Cleveland, and Adam Pluko gives up a ton of power. So the four guys, we know that the top four and then kind of Chesler Cuthbert on Kansas City are going to be high upside plays here. We don't really know who the Orioles are facing, so it's hard to compare them since we know Kansas City is in a good spot.
Yeah, sorry, I was kind of going as for the vanilla, if they're facing equal pitching, kind of looking forward. Sure. It feels like there's a little more hope there for some of the Orioles, or was it just so darn bleak there for a while that now it looks like there is?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the Orioles have a better lineup top to bottom than Kansas City. I actually have no idea if the numbers bear that out, but that's so the numbers say Kansas City has the better offense, but I think I would rather have Baltimore's offense than Kansas City's.
I would agree on that. Now, Mondesi being out, that's the tipping point, really, to be fair. If Mondesi was sitting in here, then I'd be like, okay, that makes sense. But back over here, let's see. Yeah, play the Angels. We said all of them. All right, final game. The other 10 o'clock game, it's going to be in the upper 70s still for Seattle. Still finishing up that bit of a warm stretch that they've had up there in the Pacific Northwest. Drew Verhagen is going against question mark there for Seattle. Probably one of their lefties would be my guess. So like LeBlanc or I think Malone pitched before LeBlanc. So probably LeBlanc if I had to guess. But let's talk about some crappy offenses here. Definitely the Detroit Tigers. Miguel Cabrera, 2,800. Is that his FanDuel price or his DraftKings price?
Sounds like probably both.
It is. Oh, you lucked out. It is actually both today. It is. Well played. Well played. Yeah, I'm not going to go high or low. I'm just going to nail the number here, Emac. It's $2,800 on both sites. That's something I thought I would never see. It was Triple Crown winner. I got nothing more to add.
Yeah, no, it was actually kind of funny. One of my friends that lives near me has been out in Vegas for the World Series of Poker, and he's back. And so we went out to lunch today, and he was talking about making a DFS lineup last night and trying to get Chris Archer in and having to settle for Dylan Bundy. But he said that one of the one-offs that he would have had to go to with Archer was he was like, I'm looking at Miguel Cabrera at 3K, and I'm just like, I can't do it. Like all this guy's going to do is slap singles, and I can't roster him. It's pretty crazy to see how far that price tag's fallen.
Yeah, kids, if you want to know what Tony Gwynn looked like, and from a DFS perspective, it's Miguel Cabrera at this point. Goodness gracious. All right, but back to that. What do you like, if anything, coming from Detroit here? Because the Mariners actually have still given up the most runs in the league this season. Baltimore still right there with them, and then 50 behind now is Colorado. But yikes, Mariners not good, and they're not good up and down their lineup. The Mike Leake 9-inning one-hitter notwithstanding, the Mariners are just not good up and down the lineup after dealing away their bullpen, their closer, and just having god-awful starters. Anything stand out? Maybe Castellanos?
Yeah, I mean, Castellanos is the best hitter on the team. If we get a right-handed pitcher for Seattle, then Kristen Stewart at a really cheap price tag is a power bat as well.
All right, and then for the Mariners, somehow I was at work, so I missed out. But apparently, Dan Vogelbach had another double dong day today in the afternoon slate. I'm sad.
Apparently, what? It broke up.
Oh, apparently Vogelbach had a double home run game today.
Oh, yeah, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I want to go check, but he's the guy I always like. But that's just me. It's not a very exciting batting average that comes with him. He either hits a home run or literally busts. Why, yes, he did have 2 home runs. He has 25 on the season, upped his average to 233 with this 2 for 4 performance here. He's pretty good at striking out as well. That doesn't necessarily help us. And Mike Leake apparently pitching for that next contract. I said bad things about him in the write-up today, and he's now gone 16 innings with 3 earned runs allowed in his last 2 starts.
No Joey Gallo for Texas certainly didn't hurt.
Yeah. But looking at the M's, so they've had Domingo Santana. I thought he was supposed to just have a regular day off, so he should be in the lineup. And then they've been bouncing around Tim Beckham, but if you go look at his numbers against righties, his power numbers anyway, they haven't been that bad over the last 18 months. Generally, we like to look at him when he's going against a lefty. He's usually instilled in that 5th spot. Sometimes he goes all the way up to 3rd, depending on who else is in the lineup with him. And then Austin Nola, you might recognize that last name. Yes, it's Aaron Nola's, I think it's his older brother, is now up and pretty much going to be starting every day for the Mariners, because that's the pain and suffering it is to be a Mariners fan. But I guess on a 6-game slate, we would have to consider him. Any final thoughts before we get on out of here, Adam?
No, I mean, obviously just keep an eye on what pitchers come out for the Mariners, the Angels, and the A's, because really brutal matchups for the good pitchers on the slate that we know of right now. So that'll really impact ownership and the best roster construction later on.
And it wouldn't even be a huge shock to me if Texas went and put somebody in front of Ferrado either, with what they've been doing lately. So just to get through the first 3 batters for him. So anyway, throwing it out there. All right, with that, we're going to get on out of here. You will have the DFS strategy show at 9:30 on Thursday. You will have the deep dive. I think, well, stay tuned. Subscribe and like that Osmo YouTube channel. It's a 6-game slate. There may just be 1 show. You'll have to see. You'll have to check it out, but should be fun nonetheless. May not quite have the wall-to-wall coverage that we will on Friday when we have a full slate. Saturday when we have a monster Saturday night slate. And then Sunday we've got a healthy one as well. So we've got you covered here. If you have not yet signed up for Osmo, use the promo code EARLYBIRD, all one word, to get 50% off any 1-month package. We've got NASCAR, we've got PGA, we've got WNBA, and more. And more. With that, gamers, you can follow Adam at ShipMyMoneyDFS. I am at EMAC DFS, and of course, it is Osmo_COM. That, gamers, good luck.